Your Joy-Cons broken? The dog chummer. Your little brother try and fix them. But just in need of a refresh? Today we'll be doing that for under $10. We're going to be using some Aliexpress shelves to replace our old worn ones. We'll run through the replacement procedure and give them a rating at the end. We'll be using all 5 of our senses to rate these. Touch, sight, hearing, smell, and of course taste. Let us begin. We're going to be replacing the Joy-Con shells. These ones are pretty knackered.
Now you can probably tell, but these ones are already aftermarket and they haven't really stood the test of time. Look at the amount of cracks in them.
I mean, that's completely cracked. Those top buttons there aren't working at all. So we will be replacing them with these ones. So that is the packaging that they actually came in. There was a bubble mailer on the outside, so there's a slight bit of protection, but inside, yeah, you better hope they don't manhandle these things too much. So I've opted for the special Zelda edition ones. There they are side by side. They will soon be inside of each other. Let's get it unwrapped and see what else comes inside.
Well, that's basically it. It's just pretty much the frame with the SL and SR buttons.
So the tools required today are the Phillips head screwdriver, tri-wing screwdriver, and some tweezers. Let's start one at a time. Now they are slightly different depending if your screws are original or not. It will either be a tri-wing or Phillips head. I'm going to start off by removing the 4 screws. Oh, bit rough. Disconnect your battery. Maybe don't throw it. You can really see even inside this thing is broken.
There should be 1, 2, 3 screws to remove.
Now don't yank up on that because that is still attached by a ribbon cable. Fold it over gently, pry that up, pull that out. That there is for your little rumble motor. There is usually a little bit of double-sided tape, I believe, under them. Yeah, a little bit sticky still, not much.
We have another 2 screws to remove out of the board, and then we can remove the 2 screws holding our Joy-Con little stick in. Push it out.
And this is your shoulder button.
There's a further 3 screws holding these shoulder buttons in, so remove them and then you'll get your shoulder button off itself. Ensure you don't lose that spring. And this little stuck down, potentially a dust cover maybe. Remove that as well. We'll put that onto the other one.
So we have everything removed out of that. It's looking pretty naked. So now we can start transferring everything out of the old one into the new one. So here's our new one. So there is little cutouts on the buttons, so they do go in a certain spot. Rubber pad on top of that. Screenshotty button. Minus. Now that little thing had tape on it, so it's probably not going to stick down too well now, but we're going to put it back on anyway. There's a tiny little cutout there which lines up into the frame, so make sure you've got your button in that.
And then we're going to line up the board back in the housing and screw it back down. Just the 2 screws there, followed by the thumbstick. Another 2 screws in that.
You go ahead and start plugging some of these things back in now. Need our shoulder button with spring. Now if your spring's fallen out and you've forgotten where it's gone, it's on that thing in the middle there. Bam, just like that. The spring will then sit in that housing there, and this needs to be on the inside. We'll jam that in there. Before we close that one up, we do need to do this half of it and swap the rail piece. Only 1 screw on that rail comes out. You need to take that button with it. There is cutouts along there so that you can get it on the correct orientation. So it did come with new SLSR buttons, which are the ones that go in there. Take the 2 screws out of this.
Now, of course, I don't actually need to change these 2 buttons. They are working on this one. It's purely aesthetic reasons for it to tie in with the other colors of the shell.
It's got little cutouts on it again, so you put it in the right position.
Now once they are in place, you can put the little rubber brake pads back on top, line up your actual button board on top of it, and then 2 screws back in.
And there you have it.
Then all that's left to do is screw it back into the frame.
So that part is ready. We need to get this part in and assembled. We do need to swap over our shoulder buttons off that one first. So if you just pull on it, nice and gentle, let's come off. We need the springs and we need the button, obviously.
Don't lose your springs, and then all you need to do is take out the 1 screw holding the button in. Let's swap it across, 1 screw back in, and then line up the springs on the little pokey uppy bits.
It's also got little bumps on here where the springs need to go on here. So we want to plug these plugs back into this board before we put that over the top, so otherwise you can have a very hard time trying to do it afterwards. Now we need to plug this in, plug that one in before we screw it down.
And it's just the 3 screws to secure that back down again.
Finally, the battery. Now when you get them out for the first time, I should have mentioned this at the start, they are actually glued down a little bit, or double-sided taped down. These ones have been opened before, so they won't.
Now with that battery back in, we are ready to close it up. Just press a button, see that it lights up, look at that. We should be all good. So let's put these screws back into the back cover, the 4 of them. Now that it's all back together again, let's just stop and marvel at its beauty for a little bit. Everything was such a good fit, and it looks miles ahead of that crusty old green one.
Now that is our first one done. Went pretty smoothly. Looks like it's going to be all good. Haven't actually tested it yet. I'm confident. We'll test it at the end. Now we're going to move on to the next one. Very similar, not quite the same inside, so maybe we'll go a bit faster and we'll just show the differences, but stick around.
At this point it's the same. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 to take off. So again, battery out. Well, this one's shattered inside. See that? It's not even attached to the back plate anymore. This one does still have 3 screws in this, but they're 1, 2, 3, rather than 2 in the middle now. We've also got a little antenna thing. And this cable on the shoulder button is way shorter. Get under there early. Disconnect that. Disconnect these. So the layout in this one is different. It's also a bigger circuit board. Vibration motor again. Yeah, a little bit stuck in.
So we've got everything out of the way now, so we can take that board out along with the IR camera at the bottom there. So don't yank it, just be gentle. You don't want to break stuff. We're going to start transferring this stuff into the new shelves straight away.
Make sure you put your little home button up the right way.
Don't forget to put the little black pieces back on for around that stick area, and then you can get your board back in. Screw it down and then proceed with the other parts.
Now, unfortunately, I have made a boo-boo, which is super disappointing because this thing's a real pain in the ass when it breaks.
That locking tab has come off that connector. Now they are so small, they are such a pain in the ass to line up. I would genuinely rather replace the whole connector itself. I don't have any new connectors. I don't have any donor boards I can pull that off.
So we're under the microscope to see if we can try and reline it up and get it attached. To be fair, I've never really had any success trying to do this before on any of the other consoles, I usually just end up replacing the connector itself. Will this be any different? Here's to hoping. I really don't think so though. And in the blink of an eye, I've lost that connector, so bad luck.
I will proceed with putting it back together because that is the cable for that ribbon. That ribbon is that button board for the SLSR. So the rest of the Joy-Con should still work, except for those two buttons, which for the most part isn't required. Let's go ahead and put the rest back together anyway.
So for now, I'm just going to try and fold that cable underneath the battery area and just hide it for now.
So they don't work, as I said. The lights aren't lighting up either.
They're all swapped over, slight mishap. Apart from that, usually it's all pretty good, pretty smooth sailing. So let's get them on the console, make sure they work.
Everything is working all right.
Right, now, ignoring our little mishap, let's review the finished product.
As far as touch is concerned, they feel really good. They are nice and solid. They feel pretty much the same as a genuine set. Sight, well, they look good, the colors are nice, and they look quite original with the Zelda images all over the front and the logo and branding still on the back. Here, well, there's not really much to... They sound like plastic.
Smell. I mean, they're not scented, so they don't really smell like anything. And of course, taste. Now, I'm not going to boil these down into a soup or anything, but they don't really taste like anything. Overall, pretty happy with the results. They only cost $2.65 on their own. With tax and shipping, it costed $7.11 USD total. So that's under $10 to completely revamp them and make them look almost new again. If I'd replaced the buttons as well, they would look brand new. I also wish they included some new screws with them. Either way, I give them an 8 out of 10. Pretty happy. Yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe.
We're currently sitting at 483. Let's get to 500.
Leave a comment down below, and I shall see you in the next one.
And one last thing.